Big delivery from the big rig. Gavin Williams comes through with a big start at a time the Guardians absolutely needed that. They beat the Yankees, and if this is the Gavin Williams we're going to get going forward, big things are ahead for the Guardians this year.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another victory celebration episode of Locked On Guardians. This time it's Gavin Williams and the Guardians taking down the New York Yankees. A huge start from the big rig. We're going to break that all down on today's Locked On Guardians. Opportunistic offense. The Guardians did have some big boppers come through in this one. We do have to get to the end of the line for Triston McKenzie, but it is Locked On Guardians. All mostly good news today for the Guardians as they are winners of 4 in a row. We're happy you're here with us. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. It is our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's yours as well. So come on in and join us for some Guardians talk for the next half hour. My name is Justin Latta. I have been watching Cleveland Guardians baseball since I was a kid for 30-something years now. And I have been covering the minor league system since 2007. You could find my minor league analysis at the News Herald, the Morning Journal, next year in Cleveland.substack.com. And 5 days a week here with my friend and co-host, Jeff Ellis.
My name is Jeff Ellis. I used to be a prospect analyst and writer at Scotland 24/7, where I wrote many prospect and MLB draft newsletters over the years to, many people who were intrigued in those areas. National job. And then I'm at Locked On, brought me on as one of the first waves of writers here. As Justin said, we want to thank you for making this episode your first listen today and every day. And I want to throw out, because we saw it in a recent comment, we have to do intros. That's a network thing. So to those who do not like intros, sorry. We want to try to get A's on the show and not C's. But we've got
this could be somebody's first podcast.
And every episode could be someone's first content. But we have A content every day. You mentioned the big rig. This was definitely not. Some of his earlier appearances this year had been more like big rigs over the road racing. If you know, you know. This was not. We had some offensive performances, and of course, we'll have to talk about McKenzie and Zak Kent later in the show today.
Indeed, we will get all that. Before we get too deep in today's show, Locked On Guardians today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins, so go check that out. Yes, the big rig has been kind of a four-wheeler this year instead of an 18-wheeler. But this one was a big one. The Guardians, Jeff, needed this start from Gavin Williams. It was critical for them to have this one. Not a lot of guys available in the bullpen. No Emmanuel Clase, for better or for worse. I think we'll have more to say on the Clase A thing in the coming days, too. There's some more data out there, some more information available we could share later on from one of our favorite writers. Jeff will shout that out. We'll get to that later this week. But the Guardians had a lot of relievers not available. Hunter Gaddis was not available. Emmanuel Clase was not available. They have a new guy up in the pen, Zak Kent. You had a bunch of guys out there you weren't trying to piece it together. You still have Cade Smith in the ninth, but you had to save Cade Smith for this one a little bit. So you had to get a deep start from Gavin Williams. And Jeff, it didn't even start out good. Brian Rocchio makes an error on the first play of the game. Gavin Williams has 2 walks in the first inning. His pitch count is up to the high 20s. And, this is not a lineup. I know they don't have Juan Soto anymore, but the Yankees lineup is still pretty good. They still hit the ball far a lot. It might be a little bit deeper than it was a year ago in some ways. Paul Goldschmidt's been good for them so far.
Judge is the far and away the favorite for the MVP. Austin Wells has continued to be solid.
They didn't have Ben Rice playing, but he's been good for them. Oswaldo Cabrera has been decent this year too. So this is still a good Yankees lineup, and you can't give them extra outs, including errors and walks. And Gavin Williams was able to navigate that tricky first inning, which was huge for him because Gavin Williams, we know, has one of those innings every game. It depends on when it comes, but he always has one of those innings every game where things just kind of get dicey for him and you just worry he's not going to make it through. He usually has one of those big innings. The big inning for him was the first inning in this one because of the 2 walks in the error, but he doesn't allow any runs and he gets through it and he settles down the rest of the game, really buckled down. Didn't have any walks after that. Both of his walks came in that first inning. That was a huge performance. Set a career high in whiffs at 21. got the Guardians into the 7th inning. They haven't had a lot of that. We were just saying on Monday, Jeff, that they had to push Ben Lively and Logan Allen into the 6th inning because they weren't getting deep starts from the big guys, from Williams and Bybee and to another extent Luis Ortiz. Even though he was good, he doesn't go very deep. So for the Guardians to be able to push one of their top of the rotation guys into the 7th inning in a game where they didn't have a lot of their top relievers available, even if one of them is struggling quite a bit, that was an important moment, especially how this game started out. That might have been the best performance of Gavin Williams' career, if I'm being honest, just given the situation the Guardians were in and how this game started out.
100%. And, I know you have more data to get into. We'll get into that. But when you're looking at this, he had every reason to implode in the first. And let's be honest, that's what we've seen happen with Gavin Williams. Like, he has not been a guy that's shown a lot of weathering adversity. Whether or not that's a fair assessment, he's a young player. One of the worst players I've ever seen when they were young at weathering adversity was Carlos Carrasco. And then look, as he became absolutely nails at that. Like, Carrasco was known, like, people called him soft and thought he had no future. So it's like, you can definitely, overcome that as a struggle early on in your career. And I'm not saying that to insult anyone. I'm just saying we've seen it happen. But Williams is not known for that. He's not known as that guy who he's often been seen as more of a guy who can get down on himself and then struggles to get out. And he was nails. And then after that, really, until they tried to get him, to maybe go 7. I understand he was under 100 pitches. It was a dangerous situation. He ended up giving up 2 runs there. Still, my 3 stars in this are Gavin, Jose, and Manzardo. Just because all those felt like the big momentum pieces, even though there was a lot of great performances. But to focus on Gavin, it's like, he missed a ton of bats, which is what we've been asking for him to do. His control looked better. His command looked better. He did everything you wanted that guy who all spring was talked about as one of the breakouts in the American League to do.
Yeah, it's definitely important to be patient too. I mean, we had some, what was it, just last week, I think we were talking about whether or not we thought Gavin Williams could be someone who's a dominant starter. We talked about why isn't he dominating? I think we even said, like, the stuff is good. I think I said the stuff is good individually. So we were asking why hasn't Gavin Williams dominated yet? Because he did have all the spring training hype, like you said. He is a former 1st-round pick. And then, you ask the question, maybe the stuff just isn't that good. We think it's not that good. This game really absolutely showed it. His fastball, he was able to locate the top and bottom of the zone. He got some favorable calls. I think we can be honest about that. Bo Naylor, who is one of the better framers, I think buy him
went both ways. Like, it was a wide zone tonight at points, and then at points it got skinny. It was not well called.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see later today when we pull up the profile here, the scorecard. It probably will be pretty dicey, but who knows? I've been surprised before, but it didn't seem like the most consistent strike zone. But Bo Naylor did give him some advantages, which you'll take in a lineup against the Yankees. You need that, but he was able to locate. He was able to get them to fish on breaking balls below the zone, locate the fastball at the top of the zone. Just he threw his stuff where it plays well. He went out there. I think this is a profile or this is a template I want to see Tanner Bybee follow today. He went out there and he threw his stuff where it plays the best. And if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. And it worked. He went out there. He was confident. He put his pitches in places where they're going to play the best against any lineup. And if they hit it, then, that so be it. And I think Tanner Bybee's got to put himself in a similar situation. The Guardians have to put him in a similar situation. So that was important to see for Gavin Williams. Yeah, they turned some big double plays too. I mean, I know Rocchio had the air to start the game, but they ended up turning 3 double plays. One in the first inning with Bellinger, and then they did one later in the game that was against Austin Wells, and they would have had Aaron Judge come up with a couple runners on. And that ended up being a big spot for them as well, because you always want to pitch to Aaron Judge with the bases empty as much as you can. I mean, the double he had was with 2 outs. So the double he had no impact. You walked him once. It is what it is. You struck him out twice, including Cade Smith. And, the bullpen, Paul Sewald threw one bad pitch. And there was somebody today who was saying, well, Paul Sewald's not very good. I would be cautious to judge his performance because he's given up some runs, but it's in limited outings, so there's a couple blow-ups there. He's been good overall. It was they asked him to go a little bit longer than they should have, I think. But you had to in a game like this. And shout out to Joey Cantillo. I know he walked a batter in this one. He walked a batter on Sunday, too. We didn't really talk about Joey Cantillo on Sunday, but that's back-to-back outings for a guy who has never really thrown on back-to-back days in his career. And he got them a save on Sunday in Pittsburgh in a tight game, extra innings. And he came in a key spot in this game and got them a strikeout too. Joey Cantillo has really settled himself into a key bullpen role in a moment, and two moments they needed him badly.
Yeah, and it's that's that situation where I'm like, with his stuff and his ability, instead of having Seawald go trying to get him up to an inning and 2/3 there, it's like, just bring in Cantillo, like, trust him to do more. Maybe when you're limited, he's the guy where I think you have to bring that trust in, and see if you can get more out of him. But yeah, the bullpen did enough, right? Like, they did enough, and the offense did enough. And I know we'll come back to and have to talk about the offense in the next segment of the show. You got to talk about Manzardo on his home run quest, and Jerry Rams hitting. I mean, everyone for Rocchio's struggles, he also is a big part. So a lot of offensive chatter, and we got to talk Rocchio's hand as well in segment 2.
Yeah, we'll get into the Rocchio situation, his hand, and what might happen there, because he ended up leaving the game. I got one more thing I want to talk about with the bullpen and why Cade Smith's performance in this game was super important. We'll get to that. We'll get to the offense. We will get to the end of the line for Triston McKenzie and Zak Kent, why he was recalled. Just tune in for more of that on today's Locked On Guardians. The NBA playoffs, they are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you're placing your first bet for $5. You're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I got the Cavs, I think, in 5. They had a dominant game against the Heat. They played pretty well. I think the Heat are still a challenging team. They have a lot of playoff experience. I would probably still take the Cavs in 5 if you're doing bets in the first round in the NBA. Tanner Bybee against the Yankees tonight. I think Tanner Bybee is going to want some revenge against the Yankees. Gavin Williams certainly got some. Cade Smith certainly got some. In this one, I think Tanner Bybee is the next guy who wants revenge. Jose Ramirez got some too. So I think all those guys are looking to play well in this series. So check out FanDuel. Check out what's going on there with prop bets during MLB games, during NBA games. You can combine live prop bets into same-game parlays. Even if you miss the tip-off for the first pitch, still got a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Cade Smith, Jeff, last year, I think really, I think we can say he ran out of gas, obviously, late in the season. He was pushed hard. The whole bullpen was pushed hard.
It was.
But he became very hittable late in that Yankees series last year. And that last at bat against Judge, to me, I think, was a huge sign for Cade Smith. Emmanuel Clase has struggled this year. There's no doubt about that. There's some elements of bad luck there, but there's also some things that need to be fixed. We're gonna get to that later in the week. So if you're listening to the show, please come back later in the week, and we'll talk more about Clase.
We have more data on that.
Yeah, we do have more data on that. But Cade Smith has also given up some hits this year too, and we're not really surprised that there is some regression there because the league got used to him last year. They're going to adjust back. He got pushed hard late in the season, so like all those things are going to balance out naturally. But then at bat to Aaron Judge, he went upstairs with the fastball, which is where you want to pitch to Aaron Judge. You go hard upstairs and you go breaking stuff downstairs. That's where you change his eye levels. You go high so he can't extend his arms. You go low, you get in the chase. That's been the MO his entire career. He covers a lot of plate for a guy with big limbs. Sometimes those guys don't cover enough because their swing gets long. But he ended up getting in the chase on that splitter low in the zone. He went back to it twice. He was out of the zone the first time, and he went back to it a second time. Last year, I thought we saw Cade Smith just go fastball, 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 fastball. It was a great pitch. But when you have one great pitch, this is a great lesson in Emmanuel Clase, you have to adjust. And I think Cade Smith showed that in this game. I think Cade Smith being able to throw that splitter more often, to get chases, to get strikes low in the zone, so he doesn't have to just rely on that fastball, that to me was huge because you didn't want to have to face Aaron Judge in that situation in the ninth inning, obviously. But it happened anyway because he gave him a hit. And he attacked Aaron Judge the way you're supposed to attack him. And it's nice to see Cade Smith, dominate that at bat. And I know some Yankees fans are going to gripe about the call on the outside part of the plate. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, next year we'll have the challenge system. We'll see what happens. But he still went fishing for that splitter low in the zone. To me, that was a huge pitch and a huge at bat for Cade Smith based on what we saw in the Yankee series last year and what we saw from him last year overall, and the need to adjust and not just rely on what made you great the year before.
Yeah, he's definitely been more hittable this year, and the control hasn't been quite there. So it was a solid performance. He did a good job. The splitter can be such a devastating pitch. It was essentially like when people were talking about how good Cal Quantrill was in the first half of a year ago. He was throwing it like 60-70% of the time. Now it's also can be very hard to command. And I was unfortunately my computer over here isn't working properly. I was trying to pull up the data to look at kind of where Smith was working in and around the zone. But the splitter can be an absolute devastator. Like it's a perfect bullpen pitch. It really is. And I think that him using it more and featuring it, I said, we'll get into the Class A of it all later in the week. We've got some more data that kind of talks about that. But the interesting thing is, to give a little bit of a spoiler, it's like part of Class A's problem appears to be he is trying to do something and it's not quite working. He is trying to make an adjustment that is failing as opposed to Cade Smith's successful adjustment. Speaking of successful adjustments, we were talking about some of the offensive guys. Manzardo's been up and down, but I'll say now after this game, Manzardo, Santana, Kwan, and Jose are all tied with 7 players of the game, 7 of the stars of the game. So those 4 guys have really, and Santana's cooled off quite a bit, but it's interesting with the ups and downs. We got to see kind of the balance today and what it could look like. And they were just cycling through like Rocchio. We talked about the offense, like transfers continue to be an occasional issue for him, but he reached base 4 times in this game. I want to say 2 hits, the bean and the walk. Like he had one of his best days. Almost everyone got involved. It was fantastic to see.
Yeah, almost everybody did. Nolan Jones worked a walk, and Santana did not get on base. Bo Naylor did not get on base, but yeah, most of the guys were involved in this one. Yeah, I mean, we've been saying Manzardo. We said this on Monday show. Every day I've heard us say this on Monday show. We've been waiting for Kyle Manzardo to break out. He had a good start to the season, cooled off, but we said him and Nolan Jones both getting very unlucky in a lot of ways, and Kyle Manzardo coming through. That was a huge home run to follow up with Jose Ramirez's 3-run shot with the solo shot after that, and really just kind of knock this game open. And I know the Yankees came back and the bullpen and all that stuff. And I know that the 2-run homer came off Gavin Williams to start with. I don't mind pushing him to the 7th inning the way you did, even though it didn't work out. It was the right time and the right spot to do it. But you were able to do that because the offense came through. I mean, early on, after Gavin Williams kind of struggled through the first inning in the air and all that, he rebounded. In the first 2 innings, I thought this is going to be a pitcher's duel. The first 2.5 innings, I thought, okay, this is going to be a pitcher's duel the whole way. Not really surprised. And then the offense just broke through in the 4th and the 3rd inning with those 3 home runs, or the 2 home runs and the big 3-run shot from Jose Ramirez. Good to get him going. I know we haven't really touched on him being moved into the 3-hole. We'll probably get to that later in the week as well. I want to dive into more of that than just a few sentences on that. So, but you really needed him to come through. I mean, obviously we talked last postseason about Jose Ramirez. This is not the postseason. I had some people in our insiders group were texting me saying it felt like a playoff game. I don't know if I felt like it was a playoff game, but I think it was an important game for the Guardians to continue their momentum against, they took over the Pirates and things kind of went sideways for them on Sunday, and they were able to recover and win, which is good for them. Because you never know how those things are going to affect you, right? Like this is still I think everyone gets kind of annoyed. We always say it's a young team, right? But it is a young team. And when your all-world closer continues to have those issues, unlucky or not, it can be kind of frustrating and can kind of do something to your psyche. And it could have spoiled a good road trip. It didn't. They came back and won. I think that was huge on the road for them to come back home from that. And they didn't have a letdown against the Yankees. Jose, didn't have a great series against the Yankees. And again, this is not a playoff game, even though some people said it felt like one. Still good to see Jose come through with a big hit against the Yankees. And then for Manzardo to kind of announce his presence again in the middle of the order. I don't know. Manzardo in the middle of the order right now, to me, just feels really good. Is there going to be some moments where he lets you down and he's going through some growing pains? Yeah, he's still in his, first full season at the big league level. But I feel really good about Manzardo on the 4 spot right now. I think this is going to be something that gets better throughout the year, and he's going to have these big hits. I do trust Manzardo as your middle of the order bat right now.
He is tied for 5th in baseball in home runs, side note. The only people who have more are Mike Trout, Fernando Tatis, Tyler Soderstrom, and Cal Raleigh. He's
interesting group.
Yeah, it is. He's got as many home runs as Aaron Judge, by the way, just as a fun fact, and Jazz Chisholm. So 3 guys in this game with 7 home runs. But yeah, you're looking at Manzardo's power, and it's interesting because this is not what we expected his profile to be. Right now, it's a lot of home runs, it's a lot of walks, it's a lot of Ks. It's I'm curious to see, and he's still a young guy. We talk about development isn't linear. There's nothing that says he's not going to figure out the other side of it as he, finds ways to be effective. And boy, was he effective. Jose, and I'll say this: I think for more for the fans and the players, this was probably a playoff atmosphere. For the players, it's still early. There's still a lot of that. Like, was it Andre was talking about on the game today that like Santana sat next to him was like, man, it's a good April for me, like compared to most years.
Yeah, he knows.
He knows. Like these guys know, and it is a team that is full of slow starters, and they're playing really well when you think about that, because that stuff does matter. We know there's so much data right now and so much everything else. Some people hate it, other people want all the information they can have. But yeah, this is a team, and for the fans, it is great. No one likes New York. It's, I could hear the New York sucks chants during the game on the radio or on the TV broadcast. So it's like, I think it's every game is important. They want to win all of them. And I think the offense being as good as it is, as you said, top 10 offense by WRC plus so far this year, like as much as it is, we tend to knee jerk one way or the other on it. Like outside of Bo Naylor and Carlos Santana, everyone came through, and Santana and Naylor both had some hard hits in this one as well. I mean, they had some hard hits throughout this game. Eventually, we're hoping even more will start falling in, and this will stay a top 10 offense this year.
Yeah. Also got 2 more hits from Angel Martinez. Brian Rocchio did have 2 hits as well. We got to touch on that situation here still.
Yeah.
And what that looks like if something happens here. He did leave the game. We'll touch on that coming up. We'll also touch on Triston McKenzie being designated for assignment. Zak Kent is up. We'll get into why it was Zak Kent and what you can expect from that on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Hey, thank you for, first of all, being you and being here. We love that you're here with us. I hope you do it every day. We hope you are auto-downloading on all of your audio formats. Apple, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Stitcher. Did I say Spotify already?
Yes. I know we used to talk about like the Audacity app and the Himalaya app for people that have advertised on this network at points. I don't know if those still exist.
Yeah. Make sure you're auto-downloading to never miss an episode. Judging by today's numbers or Monday's numbers, you did not. So thank you for that. Same with YouTube. Hit the bell on YouTube. Jeff had a really good breakdown video on Monday of the Triston McKenzie DFA and Zak Kent call up. So if you didn't catch that video, go back and watch that and hit the bell so you make sure you see that next time. I had the reaction video up there from the Yankees, from the win over the Yankees. So check that out. And if you like what you're hearing, again, we were texting our insiders during the game. I texted them when Triston McKenzie got DFA'd. We were texting during the game talking about this is a playoff atmosphere to some of the fans. If you want to be part of that and you want some occasional bonus content, you just want to get on the conversation with us during games when news happens, sign up at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians. We'd love to have you as part of the community. So Brian Rocchio gets hit in the hand. First of all, ridiculous that the umpires and Aaron Boone thought he was faking it. They were going to try to challenge it because he ran halfway up the third.
They did challenge it.
Well, they did challenge it, but it was ridiculous. The guy ran up halfway the third base line. Now, Rocchio has been.
If he doesn't pull back, isn't it technically? If you show bunt and it hits your hand, then it's part of the action of the bunt, so it would be a strike. So I think it was just to prove that he had pulled back, right?
Well,
there is a logic to it.
I guess I don't know if it was. I don't know. I thought it was more because of the hit by pitch or not, but. He ran the halfway to the third base line because it looked like it really hurt. I thought he was going to come out of the game. He ended up coming out of the game eventually. But he had a nice night. I know he had the air to start the game, but he ended up playing better defensively throughout the night. And, thankfully one of his errors didn't cost him the game. So he comes out of the game. Steeman goes to second, makes a nice play in the 9th inning, by the way. We had a lot of people ask about Juan Brito the last couple of days. Juan Brito has not played in Columbus since April 17th. That was Thursday. He is out with a jammed wrist right now. He's considered day-to-day. So that's why he has not been in the Clippers lineup. And if Rocchio, for some reason, needs to go to the injured list, I don't know if they'll be able to call up Brito because he's also dealing with an injury of his own. So let's hope Rocchio doesn't go to the injured list. You might be looking at Angel Martinez at second base or Daniel Steeman. I know Lane Thomas continues to be out of the lineup because he's still dealing with some effects of his hit by pitch too. So they need Martinez in center. Martinez is going to stay in the lineup one way or the other. So you might see more Daniel Steeman in the short term. I know some people want to talk Will Wilson. I want to save the Will. Like, we'll see if Will Wilson does get called up. We'll address that. But other than that, I want to save that for Thursday when we talk about, or Friday. We do minor league talk on Friday this week. But we will talk about Will Wilson later in the week. But yeah, I would hold on Brito just because he's been hurt himself. Hopefully he's okay and he plays tonight. So we'll see on that. But hopefully Rocchio's okay on his own.
Yeah, and the one nice thing is you have Gabby you can flip over if you need to, and
Correct.
like you said, Martinez can play second, Sheeman can play second. If it's Wilson, if it's someone else, they do have a few options. That'll all be for Thursday. Thursday for us, Friday for you. But we'll handle all of that and be able to get in depth. But for now, we won't worry about it, though. Maybe they'll force our hand, and we'll have to talk about it before then. But speaking of forcing our hand, I mean, I texted you when I got the message about Zak Kent and Triston McKenzie today, and I had a few people ask me, like, is there a chance that Cleveland can keep McKenzie? And I'll say this, if no team with all the, look how much the Brewers paid for Quinn Prester. I'm going to go back to that point. Like, if no team in baseball, even the really bad teams, think he is worth paying $2 million, that they don't see a way to fix him, then you probably don't want him anyways. Like if no one claims McKenzie, like no one, then that's a sign that that's a really bad sign.
I mean, if he had options, he was going to go to AAA. It's not like they were going to DFA him no matter what. If he had options, just like last year, they would have sent him.
But I'm saying, if no team out there, not one of these bad teams, is like, hey, he's making $1.8 million, let's take a flyer. If no team takes a flyer, then if you're getting him back, that is a really bad sign.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Triston McKenzie, his own performance obviously cost him, right? Because he pitched on Friday, things got dicey. They had to go to Manual Class A Friday, and then he hasn't pitched since. But the bullpen was a mess over the weekend, unfortunately, especially on Sunday for Manual Class A. That cost guys their job. Now McKenzie is kind of a victim of his own performance, obviously too.
They couldn't trust him.
Had the bullpen not blown up on Sunday, had Class A gotten through that inning, no problem. I think McKenzie's still here. They're not going to DFA him just yet. They're going to keep waiting on him, even though it's not great that you can only bring him in when you're up 10-2 or whatever it is. It's not an ideal situation, but we saw remember the Toronto game from 2016. I forget how long was that game, 21 innings or something, or 18 innings, and they used the entire bullpen. And the next day, Jabba Chamberlain got DFA, and that was the end of his career. By no fault of his own, his career ended right there. Triston McKenzie, obviously enough faults to this is not the end of his career. He's got to pitch somewhere, whether it's Columbus or somebody else. But it comes down to the guy. It didn't seem like he had a lot of confidence anymore, unfortunately. Like, the velocity was there, and he just couldn't locate a second. I don't know if he just didn't trust his secondaries, but like, everything he was throwing was a fastball, and he was throwing fastballs above the catcher to the backstop. He was bouncing them in the dirt. And when he tried to throw a curveball, he's spiking it, and he's just not getting enough grip on. I don't know what's happening, but it just seems like he never was able to throw anything other than a fastball in the strike zone. And when hitters know that's coming, your curveball is worthless, and you can't have one pitch that you can barely locate. So I don't know. I don't know. I know everyone wants to say should have had the surgery, but there's no guarantee what it came back from that either.
Yeah.
And the velocity clearly isn't the issue. It's just he has no confidence in the secondary stuff. He never threw spin in the zone, and he couldn't locate the fastball to begin with. I hate to say the word yips, because the yips is a mental health thing, and it's mental health is a scary thing. I can tell you from personal experience. I hate to say that, but it's just what it feels like. It just feels like he would. I mean, I'm sure the Guardians have a mental performance coach, right? Obviously, a lot of people have this now.
Everyone does.
I just hope he's working with one, because I hope this isn't the end of the line for McKenzie. I hope better days are ahead for him, because I think he is a great kid, and it's just unfortunate.
It's always interesting, because you and I, we didn't have, I never didn't have a negative experience with him, but you and I definitely had different experiences and interactions with Triston through his time in the minors. And when I got to meet him, not in a negative way, he was a little less humble, a little more sure of himself. So it's just weird for me. Like, his confidence was really high by the time I got to interact with him in Double-A. Like, he was a hotshot prospect. Everything had gone correctly. He had seen other guys fall at the wayside. And he had all that confidence. And then you just watch that game, and I haven't seen anyone look that shaken on the mound since, Syndergaard was here. And, that was in 2023 and how bad that looked. I will say this. It's like, technically McKenzie could have pitched today if things went sideways, if they kept him. But they had such little confidence at this point. They went out and added Zak Kent. Now, Zak Kent wasn't going to pitch in this game unless it got out of hand. So they figured, well, at least they couldn't even trust McKenzie in a game at all. So they went with Zak Kent. Now, I know it says on the screen, why Zak Kent? I know people are like, why not Walters? And that's what you need, a long man. Walters isn't a long man. You needed someone to give you, if Gavin Williams goes out and, that first inning blows up and he doesn't get out of it, you needed someone who could give you some length. You need someone who can give you some innings, and that's what Zak Kent can do. You just can't have a bunch of one-inning relievers. You need someone who can eat up some more. And on top of that, Zak Kent has had a pretty interesting spring, a pretty interesting so far start to the year. Former top prospect for the Rangers, was on the 40-man a year ago. Has had some health, has had some other issues, but is really starting to show some stuff that I know at one point Justin wanted to do a whole segment on him this offseason, and we just couldn't find a way to fit it in. So he's done a lot of things to help raise his profile, I feel like, in the last few months.
Yeah, the scouting report, like Zak Kent on this in 60 seconds, is, this is a guy who they obviously got last year for international money, and he was, as Jeff said, some health issues. Was throwing 90, 92 a year ago. Now he's back to 92, 94, can hit 96. So the velocity is rebounding for him, and everything spins high. It's a high spin rate in the fastball, high spin on the slider, the curveball. So he's really, you could tell the health is back because he's spinning everything at a high rate and he's throwing harder again. He's having a pretty good start to the season. He's very interesting. Yeah, we wanted to talk a lot about him before. So he might be here in the short term. We'll see. Definitely an interesting option who can give some length, but also is a guy who, was a former top prospect, shouldn't be forgotten about. So welcome to the big leagues, Zak Kent. Always fun when a guy makes his debut, even if it's at the expense of, somebody else. All right. We'll be back on tomorrow's show to talk Guardians Yankees game 2. Can Tanner Bybee follow this one up? We'll get into that. We'll get into some lineup changes. We haven't had a chance to talk about Jose in the 3-hole. We'll get to that on Wednesday's show as well.
Yes, I want to give a quick shout out to Mickey2345 for their iTunes review. Thank you very much. While also taking this time to say, remember to rate and review, download daily, hit that thumbs up. Leave a comment below with what was your favorite moment in the game today or your favorite Triston McKenzie memory. Thank you all, and go Guardians.